But contrary to this, in the pediatric cases in children, there are no long-term or large studies based on which the anti-VEGF has been used in children. And whatever has been used in adults, the same thing has been replicated in the pediatric age group as well. Much of the literature and much of the evidence we have is not in form of clinical trials as we see in adults, but it is in form of case reports and retrospective studies. So what I have done is I combined some of the case reports from the literature and some of our own experience to sort of give a more consolidated picture. So first, coming to Coats disease, the traditional methods, as we all know, are not always very satisfactory, and some newer treatment modalities have been tried, which are in form of intravitreal bevacizumab and targeted laser, or intravitreal steroids with cryoablation, or Ozurdex, or photodynamic therapy as well in some cases. The first evidence that anti-VEGF could be useful for Coats disease came when Sun et al. They recommended and proved that there were high levels of VEGF present in SRF in patients with Coats disease, and they reduced dramatically after an injection of Macugen was given. So following that, we had various case reports, in which one of them was from Zeng et al. Who showed a remarkable improvement in the exudation in the submacular area here, as we see, following 3 injections of bevacizumab. This is one of our own cases where we saw a 3-year-old boy who came to us with a total bullous retinal detachment, exudative retinal detachment, and after 1 month of injection of Avastin, we see that the posterior pole here, that's the disc, is almost attached, and you can see the subretinal crystals which were not visible before, and this vasoproliferative areas are very well demarcated so that we can do a targeted laser and hope for some improvement without subjecting the patient to surgical therapy. But not all cases will respond. This is another case where we had given 2 subsequent injections of bevacizumab, but you see there is not much change in the SRF and still the exudation continues. So for some of these cases, Ray et al. Have mentioned that steroid may be even a better or a more potent form of treatment to reduce the exudation for these cases. And steroids can definitely help not only by being more potent, but also can reduce the number of injections required, because injections in these cases may actually need general anesthesia. Plus, the problem of steroids of glaucoma and cataract, however, may be worse in children. So to rule out those cases where to reduce the side effects of glaucoma and cataract, people have used Ozurdex. So there we see there's an Ozurdex implant in the eye, and once the exudation is reduced following Ozurdex, targeted laser has been done to reduce the exudation remarkably. Again, laser may not always be possible, especially when there is large amounts of subretinal fluid and crystal and cholesterol that is present. So few people have used to these raised areas of vasoproliferation. They have done PDT here, and they have found some success following PDT as well. Another issue that we see very often is pediatric CNVM, and this is more common, especially in patients who have hereditary macular degeneration as well, especially things like Best vitelliform disease. Here, mostly these kind of membranes are well-defined. Classic CNVMs or the pre-RP complex is the most dominant one. So combination therapy is effective. Though people have done monotherapy also, because sometimes maybe in very young patients PDT may be difficult, and they have gotten away with good results. This is one of our cases where we see the vitelliform lesion in one eye, in the left eye, and the right eye has a large CNVM with large amount of subretinal hemorrhage. Patient underwent a combination therapy, and he has done done well with just a vitelliform lesion left, and rest of it has shown good resolution. There's another patient of ours who had a CNVM with the dominant drusen, which had one eye had a scarred CNVM. The early one had an early CNVM here. You can see this is the lesion on fundus fluorescent angiogram, and you see a pocket of SRF developing here. And the patient did quite well with the combination therapy, and resolution and vision back restored to 6/6. Monotherapy has been useful in patients with myopic CNVM in children as well as we have seen in adults. Idiopathic CNVM, we see here a well-defined classic CNVM pre-RP, so we decided to do combination therapy when the patient has resolved well and the vision has come back to 6/6. This is another typical scenario which needs special attention. Here we see one eye, the right eye of the patient has a well-defined macular or a scar here following toxoplasma. This is a congenital toxoplasma scar. In the left eye of the same patient, we have a yellowish lesion here, and the quality is not very good, so you cannot appreciate a rim of hemorrhage which was present on the macular site of this lesion. Now this is a choroiditis. It may be difficult to understand that on an angiogram, but if you see the OCT, it shows it beautifully. This is the choroiditis that you are looking at, and if you see the edge of this is the CMVM. So we treated this patient with monotherapy, and you see the response after a single injection. The Lucentis has not done much to the choroiditis scar, but the CMVM has regressed. The reduction in the choroiditis or the choroiditis lesion is because the patient was also on a concurrent antitoxoplasma treatment, which has been recommended by most people. Even in the absence of an obviously active lesion, people recommend use of antitoxoplasma medication because they believe that intravitreal injections can actually trigger toxoplasma, and you may have activity even in the previously scarred areas. So treatment of these lesions not only need antivenom injections but also concurrent antitoxoplasma treatment as well. This is another patient who has done well. There is a scar in the center, a membrane developing around it, and you see following subsequent Lucentis injections, we are barely left with the scar, and the lesion around it has healed very well. Though you may not get good results in all cases, inflammatory CNVM, you see here it is active and scarred down very well, but then again a recurrent 6 months. So these patients will need follow-up and a recurrent injection. Another peculiar scenario is important to understand that these patients may have underlying systemic disorders, like this boy who had osteogenesis imperfecta. CNVM, which regressed well with monotherapy, but the child has developed a lacquer crack. So macular edema, both in cases of pediatric and diabetic macular edema, can do well, and Ozurdex injection in these cases is especially useful because not only it is efficacious, but it increases the compliance in these cases as well. Another situation in children which will need newer treatment modalities includes choroidal hemangioma, and where PDT has been used, but there is development of choroidal atrophy. This is another of our cases where following PDT, choroidal atrophy has been seen. So we have seen that this is definitely, the anti-VEGFs and PDT can be efficacious in children as well, but in spite of that, there are some frequently asked questions which still remain unanswered. Number one is the dose of anti-VEGF which should be given in these cases. The dosing that we are using is pretty empirical. Very small babies, maybe half the dose, or maybe teenagers or late teens. We could even use adult dose. And Ozurdex implants, I think we can only give an adult dosage. Procedure is similar, but the distance from the limbus is again varied from a very small child to a teenager. We don't know when the facial development or the eyeball development is complete, so what exactly would be the distance you will use. Safety issues not only towards anti-VEGF but also towards safety of repeated FFA, ICG, safety of PDT and safety of steroids in these cases, because if glaucoma and cataract does develop in pediatric age group, it may be less forgiving as compared to adults. Local complications would be similar to that in adults, but some differences could be that there could be more risk of direct trauma to the eye because you're not able to control the patient movement, especially if you're doing it under topical anesthesia. Under general anesthesia, the problems of general anesthesia also have to be encountered, and physiological trauma to the child who has to come every month for an injection, go to the OT, see various difficult things happening, so all that has to be considered. Also, the systemic issues also remain more relevant because here vasculogenesis and organogenesis is still happening. Though the GATS 2 years results did say that Avastin did have more of systemic adverse effects, but we do not know, does it form a conclusive evidence whether we should definitely use Lucentis in our cases. A small retrospective analysis that we did of 23 eyes in our own cases where we used bevacizumab, but till now we have not seen major system issues. So in conclusion, newer forms of treatment can be as effective in children as well, but we need further long-term randomized control studies to see what is the accurate dose and frequency and systemic effects of these drugs in children. Thank you for the patient hearing.